welcome back, everyone, to the Semi-Occasional Gaming Podcast. Today, I'm joined by two guests once again. I've got Max and Darcy from The Rat Shed, and they have got a game they're working on, and I'll let them talk about that. But hey guys, thanks for joining me today. Appreciate your time. Why don't you give us a quick introduction on who you are and what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Max. This is Darcy. We are from a little game studio. We started up in Brisbane, and we're currently working on our first full release title called One More Trail, which is a project we've been working on for about a year, which has been pretty cool. We got together last year. We just kind of have a focus on shipping real small projects that we're very passionate about. Yeah. I think.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the main thing. Is like we kind of make games that we really care about, and that's kind of like what we're following. Just following our passions. Like that's kind of what brought the whole team together. Is like Max pitched this idea, and we all kind of rallied around the One More Trail idea about this like cowboy at the end of like the Wild West period, and it being like almost like a dying breed of like, you know, who does a cowboy become, and when it doesn't have that like identity anymore. We were all like, oh, that's so interesting. That's so juicy. And also just like a story that I feel like hasn't really been told all that much, especially being like an Australian cowboy in the American West. It was just like, so cool. Let's dive into that and see what we can sort of like make of that narrative.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us like working the project hadn't worked much on like narrative games that much. So it was, it's been a really cool experience.
So just before we dive into your game, what are each of your roles in the studio?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I am the producer on it, and also I fell into an artist role as well. So I take care of kind of like pushing the project forward, marketing, things like that, and then I do art where I can.
And it was your initial pitch, is that right?
Yeah, definitely. I have a keen interest in like that time period, and I pitched the game to the team. So, yeah, I'm the one who brings it forward.
And yourself, Darcy?
Yeah, so I am the designer on it. So mainly like level design. We also have a narrative designer on this project as well. So sort of kind of overlook the design like in general and kind of work with like we got a programmer and a narrative designer and to help with the overall structure of the entire game.
So how many of you are there?
I think 7.
Yeah, 7 of us total. It's quite large for a team for a game of our scope.
Yeah, that's quite a lot. You're the biggest studio I've talked to so far. So what do you have everyone doing? What do you have? What are everyone else's sort of roles?
Mm-hmm. So the reason our team is so large is because we're spread across like multiple projects that aren't just related to our studio. So people contribute to One More Trail where they can.
Right, it makes sense.
We've got Oscar Jamot, who is our sound designer. Will Hins is our narrative designer, and myself and Darcy. And then we have Benny Fowler, who's our programmer, and then Ellie Rose Burrows, who does some of the art stuff where she can, and Lewis Van Dyke, who's like a consultant for us. And actually, we're kind of 7 plus an 8. We have someone called Sean Kassinger, who is just joined the team recently as a cultural consultant. So he's from America, and he's like helps us approach all of like the traditional like Native American things that we bring up in the game. Yeah.
Awesome. That's really clever. Okay, why don't you tell us what the game is? I know you touched on it briefly just before, but what is One More Trail? Go for it.
Me, okay.
Anyone?
No,
anyone?
no, absolutely. One more trailer follows like the last Australian cowboy in the American frontier. It's set in the twilight years of the West, right at the end of the time period that like we consider the Wild West. So it's when a lot of the people who called themselves cowboys kind of started losing their jobs because of the land was becoming a lot more civilized, so no more gunslingers and lawless times. So they kind of started losing their purpose, not having as much work to do. So we're telling the story of one guy as he herds his final flock across the frontier, meeting people along the way, connecting with them through conversation and acts of service. Yeah, and all the while you're just like herding a little flock of sheep and enjoying the vistas of the West.
And this is narrative driven, so there's no like combat. It's not, there's no platforming. It's nothing like that.
No, you're mainly just making decisions as you go. So we were really interested in, obviously you've got like narrative decisions. So when you stop and you can camp with someone, you can talk with them, ask them questions about, a range of things. But we also thought it'd be interesting of like, you don't have to stop and engage with people. If you want, you can pretty much play like most of the game without stopping, without talking to people along the trail. And that's also a decision like in and of itself. Even so far as like you don't actually have to keep your whole flock with you. If you actually leave them behind, you are able to do that, but that'll obviously then have other narrative implications and things like that. So I guess it's almost, what's the word we keep using? It's almost like it's a narrative game, but it's kind of just like almost like point and click, meditative, very chill game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cozy is what they say, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, cozy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we use the word meditative a lot, like because
almost like a visual novel, like an interactive visual novel type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We feel like we don't fit into the cozy category. I like a first glance, like the cozy genre.
They're more
just
cute,
feels
more
different.
cute and
Yeah,
that sort of thing. Yeah.
but it's definitely like a jumping off point for us because like we're not doing high impact action violence or anything like that. So we are cozy in a way, but we don't. Yeah, we're not fully aligned with the genre.
Yeah.
It's an interesting niche we find ourselves.
What is the genre? What would you call it?
That's a good question. A question that we ask ourselves a lot, I think. I would say that our Steam tags are like RPG, interactive, like alternate history, Western sort of vibes.
Story rich.
Story rich. Yeah, just kind of those things. I think we're finding our place still in like the actual like the market. But in terms of that, we're very close to just being like an interactive visual novel.
Interactive visual novel, yeah, that kind of makes sense. I guess the point is it's not a roguelike deck building boomer shooter arcadey.
Oh, maybe we should add that in. No.
Yeah,
which is the trend,
Yeah,
yeah, no skill trees. Yeah. So, what came first? Was it the idea of this Western setting, or was it the interactive narrative idea? Like, was that chicken or the egg came first?
I think we went through quite a few iterations with this game. Like, I think we often tell a story of like it started off as like a pixel game, and it was going to be really colorful, and it was going to be like a totally different vibe. And we were even talking about like, oh, maybe it could be like a romance game or something. Like, we had these different ideas when we started out, and it wasn't until we actually made the pixel iteration of the game, and we were like, oh yeah, this is good. But after we like went back to the drawing board and had a whole team discussion, and we were like, what is it about this idea that is drawing us in? And it was that whole idea of like the story of that cowboy rather than other things in the world and even the colors or the visuals. So we kind of stripped it all back to just I think we just like a twine build of just like like the options you could pick, just the narrative, and then built from there again, which is now we've ended up with this like totally different visual aesthetic. and much more focused on just the story, I think.
Yeah.
And
So,
trying to do something
so it
totally
kind of
different.
sounds like the Western idea or that setting was, that was kind of the initial thing, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
I think it was like, Max is really interested in that time period, pitched a game set in that time period, but less so about like what the actual game was going to look like.
So,
Um, yeah.
so what is it about? Like, can you tell me about this time period? Because I had no idea there were Aussies in the Wild
Yeah.
West. Like, what drew you to this? Why is this interesting to you?
Yeah.
And yeah, like what's going on in this period of history?
Absolutely. So, like anyone who's like a Wild West fan, I do love the content that is fantastical, like the gunslinging and stuff like that. I feel like that's what lots of people's introduction into this genre is. But then I think in recent years I started doing more research on like what the authentic West was like. And it's just so rich and diverse, and like what types of people were all coming to America at this time, and like what each section of that history was like. Um, in terms of Australians in the Wild West, they like kind of came over to the Wild West after being in Australia for a while for the gold rush, like a lot of other people who came to America did. And then after that kind of petered out, they were sort of left to their own devices as sort of like laborers. And then yeah, just as the back end of the century like kind of came through, and lots of like the railroads like went down to like can I connect all the disparate parts of the West, and there wasn't like a need for people to like be moving from trail to trail like along the West. It's just like lots of the people either had to like adapt to like a new age, or kind of just I guess it was that. It was adapt to a new age or just stop being existing. I don't know.
Yeah, just die out.
Um,
Yeah.
Dying out. And I think that is what we connected to, because we wanted to tell like a genuine story that wasn't like there was obviously a lot of violence in the West, and that is very real. But we didn't want to focus on that. We wanted to focus on like the working part of that history. Um, so that's kind of where we landed, was like telling a very like melancholic story about a bygone time.
And what is this guy, this cowboy? What does he have a name?
No,
No,
I mean, well,
a man with no
he does
name.
plus, but he's cool. We just call him the cowboy.
Okay.
We do this for a few reasons. Sorry, excuse me. Um, we do this so that the player can project themselves onto the cowboy, but also so that throughout the story you're meeting all these interesting characters along the way. However, you are able to like try and discover who this person you're spending all this time with is throughout. So like he's kind of like a blank slate at the start, and you kind of guide who this person is through like decisions as you make along the way.
Yeah, because I think like each run of the game is we only want to take about 30 to 45 minutes. And the whole idea is that obviously the decisions you make kind of shape the journey that you have. And then the whole idea is you can then go back and you could do a totally different journey, pick different locations, meet different people, pick different dialogue options, and get a totally different kind of story.
Yeah.
And so we just thought that was like, it was interesting. Like all the characters are silhouetted, and that like you actually don't really know any of these people because they're indicative of, I guess, more of like a characteristic or a trope of a person rather than an actual person who existed in that time. Like even though it's saying this is an Australian cowboy, it's no one Australian cowboy. It's kind of representative of that unknown story of the fact that they were even there. Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned the silhouetted visuals, and I guess that was one of the things that that I was drawn to when I saw your game at the Game Expo. I'd probably say, yeah, I walked past your booth at the Game Expo earlier this year, and the art style was what drew me. That was what caught my eye straight away. And you have this, or maybe you want to describe it. So you have these silhouettes. You guys can
Sure.
talk about that.
Yeah, so all the characters in the game are just black silhouettes. We're actually fortunate enough that most of the silhouettes currently in the game are actually members of the team. So we actually use a green screen to actually film our animations, which is really cool. It's really that's actually been really great to.
It's
be able
very
to do
retro.
that.
I can think of so many games from the 80s and 90s that did things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it means that we can change up animations and do so many different things with it, which is really cool. Even find more nuance in poses and things than we could if we were drawing them. But that in contrast to the background, which is actually all like archival photography of the time period. So we've scoured archives online to basically find these landscapes, cut them out digitally, and then like put them behind the characters. Which I think, yeah, it gives us that really almost like collage-y aesthetic. Because it is real locations, but we're kind of changing it and make it indicative of an area of the West, but not actually any one location.
So you've got like mountains and cacti and trees and things all from public domain footage from that time era.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, I love that. What was the decision? What was the idea behind that? Why did you? That seems like it's a lot of trouble to go through, right?
Yeah. Well, I think what I love about like game design is kind of like this decision as well was like born from what was a limitation at the time. Like I mentioned before that our team kind of is spread across multiple projects, and we were going to do this very like very saturated color scheme, like pixel art, because we had the bandwidth to do that. But then our main artist just had also like a few more commitments, so we were like, okay, well, what is a way that we could create an equally striking and distinct overall aesthetic, but kind of take us in a different direction that would allow someone else like myself, who's definitely not classically trained in art, to kind of pull together a coherent aesthetic. And as a a big cowboy fan, I look at a lot of imagery online, and I checked like some of the dates on them and noted that it's all in the public domain. It's well over 100 years old at this stage, so lots of it is just out in the open for us to use. And I think it was in conversation with a few of the team members. I was like, maybe we try an aesthetic that feels old. Like, how do we make an aesthetic that just feels old? And all of these were pre-color photography, so try just like getting a bunch of them and putting them all together. And then that led us to the question of how do we make them like the character on the foreground plane stand out, and like because there's so many like little details that kind of make, if you put anything with color in the front of that, it can kind of disappear. And so it's like, all right, if it's just all black, like it'll stand out nicely, and it does. And it just kind of created a very distinct like aesthetic, like we've seen silhouetted foregrounds in games before, but not with a monochromatic sepia background. And it's a very strong identity that I think we were really happy where we landed.
So what do? You look at, so you're looking for images from that time era, and you work out that it's now in the public domain. Do you then just take it? Do you need to ask permission, or do you need to credit the images or anything?
Technically, no, we don't have to ask permission, but we will be crediting where we get them from, because like it's just like a great resource. Like we kind of go through online databases of like museums and like cultural centers and things like that, like places that have documented all these things for us. We've even toyed around with the idea of creating like our own resource once we've created the game, that houses all of like the resources we use, so we can kind of use it as like a range extender for what we've used to
sort of.
Yeah. Because we're not trying to gatekeep the photos we use.
What about movies, like old movies, or maybe they're not old enough yet?
Potentially not. Movies are always a finicky thing because they're
licensed, and
the copyright is always someone wants to still own it.
Yeah, of course.
but potentially we haven't really looked into that. Maybe that would be pretty cool to
just
grab
spitballing.
something.
I was just thinking of old westerns and things like that. So yeah, right. Well, yeah. So it sounds like you got the makings of a really cool, really different looking game. I think visually it stands out from the crowd. Definitely did. That was my impression. What are you doing in terms of promotion? Social media reach. What are you doing to trying to get your name out there and I guess be distinct from other games?
We are. It's a chuck. The marketing side of things is always so hard. This is our kind of first foray into it, but we are basically just throwing spaghetti at a wall, seeing what sticks. Where we've got a bunch of social medias. We're trying to post to all of them, semi-consistently, semi-occasionally, and we have a monthly newsletter to keep those who are really invested up to date with the specifics of what's going on behind the scenes in the development. And then we're applying to as many festivals that'll take us. We're in Australia, New Zealand, the Indie Brews Festival that's on this weekend. So we have some announcements planned for that and festivals coming up throughout the year.
So like conventions and things like that. Yeah, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that too.
And even think with our online stuff, we're trying to do more. We've recently been talking about this. Is trying to do more just in person, face to face, actually us talking to points. To, I think just give a bit more personal connection between us and our audience.
Yeah.
Because I just think why not? I feel like it adds that extra layer of they can see the people that are making us we're just ordinary people scrappy devs trying to make something cool and hoping that it's going to connect with people that also think it's cool. We're sort of not in this to try and make $1 bajillion or whatever else like that.
Well, you never know.
Hey, I mean,
yeah.
I wouldn't say no, but I think that like I was saying before, is we're in this to kind of make stuff that we think is cool and that we're passionate about. So I think connecting and creating a community around our games is our biggest thing. I think that we're trying to get out of our marketing and our even going to events and things like that. I think I was saying before, when we went to the Games Expo, the best part was talking to people, and people would come up and be like, "Oh my god, my friend would love this game. This game is exactly what that they want." We're like, "Oh, that's so good to hear," because I think when you're making games, you're almost making it in a vacuum. And you're like, who knows if this is even going to be something people like? You can do as much research and marketing as you want, but it's not until you actually get face to face or hear from those people that are your market that you're like, oh, this is a thing that people like, not just the seven of us or whatever. So yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, I guess it probably is challenging. This is obviously you guys doing this on the side. I'm assuming you got full-time jobs as well, right? No.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So yeah, Darcy. I mean, I do work a casual job on the side. But I think Darcy and I were fortunate enough last year to be part of the Screen Queensland Games residency, which is a residency program they have in Queensland. It's in the Brisbane CBD, where they kind of give you office space for a year, and you're in a office space with a bunch of other people who are very passionate about making games, and you make games, ideally. And that's where the Rat Shed was born from. That's where One More Trail was born from, and a few other projects. So
is that a government thing?
Yeah.
Is that a grant or something? Or?
It's similar. Yeah, they sort of just it's almost like an artist in residence thing. You do it a art gallery or whatever. They just kind of, you get a small stipend basically from the a small amount of money from the government, office space, resources, that kind of stuff for a year. and the whole idea is that then like you're creating things that then they can fund with things like grants and
Right.
etc.
So it's not,
Yeah.
you have to apply for this thing and get selected.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's
right.
worth looking into if you're in Queensland and you're keen about like game development stuff. Like it gets more kind of eyes on it every year, but like still people don't know about it, so it's worth looking at.
Yeah, that sounds
And
sounds really really awesome.
yeah, it was a great opportunity, but and what that kind of did for us is you work effectively 9 to 5, 5 days a week for an entire year, and so with the intention that you kind of will continue to do it as you leave this year. So
Yeah, yeah.
we're all working from home now, but like a lot of us, because we are spread on lots of projects, have managed to like secure some funding from different areas and have been able to keep working. Where yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, obviously, the nature with indie dev is that like even Max still works part time. I still work casually every now and again. So it's just sort of trying to make do.
Yeah,
Like
of
we want to
course.
make this thing, so it's just
Yeah, yeah.
it comes and goes.
Yeah, but I imagine having that being in that program like it would really enable you to like put all your effort into that, Yeah, that sounds incredible. That sounds awesome, yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it was
They're
great.
always trying to grow it as well. So it's like Screen Queensland just do great things here in Queensland. So like they're trying to make it bigger and better every year, making improvements. So yeah, definitely worth looking into
Beauty,
everything
yeah.
that Screen Queensland
Yeah.
provides, really.
I did have one question I probably forgot to ask earlier when we're talking about your game, like the visual style. Did you get any inspiration from other things, from other games you've played in the past? Are there old games from back in the day that you look to and sort of get ideas from, inspiration from?
Oh, that's a good question. I think
Like the thing that comes to mind is the Oregon Trail, which is an old,
yeah,
like an educational thing.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if that's.
I think yeah, absolutely. And we get the comparison like a lot, obviously, and it's a very important part of the history of games in general and our game too. I think we connect to it in some way. Obviously, Oregon Trail's original art style is very, very like pixelated and simple, only held up by the limitations of the time it was made. And I think in some way we use at least the respect for history that Oregon Trail kind of has. I mean, Oregon Trail has some not great historical inaccuracies in there too, but at least in terms of trying to represent a genuine like version of the West, outside of Oregon Trail, like kind of any game that uses like a silhouette, like Limbo is a very iconic game that uses that silhouette style. And with some of our marketing stuff and what we're looking to try to do is add even the white eyes thing that Limbo does, because that is just such a tiny detail, but when you're using it on a silhouetted background, it just looks like beautiful, and it adds like a focal point to the characters. So maybe that, but in terms of like the collage aesthetic, I didn't look at anything specific when I was jumping off for it from memory, unless you can remember anything, Darcy.
No, not really. Honestly, I think that we were looking more at like non-game references more than like game references, I think. Like we were talking about it just being like, yeah, collagey and piecing things together and it kind of having like torn edges and stuff. So more even like art references than like other games that have done similar things. Was probably
Yeah.
the main thing.
I think when we went into the public domain databases, it was like, whoa, how do we make a game that looks like this? And then it's like, oh, let's just use this because we can,
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Actually, I had one more thing. Could you touch on you said you had a cultural supervisor guy. Yeah, could you talk about that a bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So we always knew going into a project set in the American frontier that, well, first of all, as a studio of people who are like primarily Caucasian, but also Australian, not even like from the like Americas, we couldn't speak to any of the like the traditional owners of the land of the American frontier. So if we want to include them in the story because they're vital to that part of history. And so being who we are, like kind of outside of America, we needed someone who can be the person who speaks to that or can connect us with the people who can. So Sean runs a little company called Native Nation, and he has been a writer and like producer in film and TV for like 20 years, I think over 20 years, and hasn't gone into games until now. And so we reached out to Sean kind of last year sometime just to be like, hey, we're doing this thing. It's a very small, like scoped project, but we want someone who is able to kind of connect us with the related tribes that would be in the locations that you travel to in the game to represent whatever comes up there, like the locations you go to or potential characters you meet, and just make sure we're doing so in like an authentic and respectful way. That is kind of where Sean fits in our little project.
It's also very fortunate he's we didn't know this when we first reached out to him, but he's a massive history buff, especially of that time period. And so we've had a couple meetings with him, and he's just a fountain of knowledge and
Awesome.
of the history of that time, which has been amazing. He also, I think, spends 6 months or part of his time on the Gold Coast in Queensland.
Okay.
So it actually we haven't met him
well.
in person, but it was good to be like, oh, he's familiar with Queensland and everything. So it wasn't a totally foreign thing. So it actually ended up working really like well in our favor.
When we first met Sean as well, he seems to know things about Queensland that we don't even know. He told us about this place. It's called like Texas Land or something, which is like in Queensland somewhere that we want to go to as a team, but it's like a little
Texas Land,
western town. Yeah, something like that. I don't quote me on this. I can't really remember, but it's like somewhere in Queensland where someone from Texas kind of came down and set up shop and has kind of
I think it's just a town called Texas. Like, and
yeah,
it's got a little
Texas,
thing there.
yeah.
But I think it's like 3 or 4 hours from Brisbane or something.
Yeah. Right, okay.
But, yeah.
We're due for an excursion there at some point, I think.
Well, you got a lot of benefit out of this professional relationship, I see.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I had one question. If you were to show this game to a cowboy from that era, what do you think what do you think they'd think of this? What would their impression be?
Whoa.
Wow.
Wow, that's a tough one.
Yeah, pretty
interesting
deep.
Question. He would, if I like during the time period we showed it to him in, I would be like, I imagine that if he engaged with the story, he'd be like, "What the hell?" Like, our way of living isn't dying out, is it? I'm sure that'd be a bit sad being confronted with that. Yeah.
I think it's I think because sorry, Max.
You go, please.
I think because we kind of don't really focus on any of the violence or like guess like almost the too much of the hardships of that time period. Like we actually are focused on like the little moments and like the moments of connection and almost like I guess it's still melancholy, but like some of the more beautiful moments of like that time period of like the of that. So I think maybe they might think. Like, hey, that's not exactly how that happened. Like, there was a bit more to it, but
yeah.
But there'd have to be those little moments. Like, surely that's what would fill 90% of the time, right? Like,
exactly. I think that like so many of the games, so many games in that time period, like as I said, like talked about the gunslinging, those big like grand moments, that probably didn't happen very often. So
well, at least not like not all day, every day, right?
Yeah, exactly. Most of the game is just on the trail, just with your sheep or sitting around a campfire, like So yeah.
Well, Max, Darcy, thank you so much for your time. Would you like to talk about where people can find your game? When will it be released, roughly? Do you have a timeline on that?
Yeah. Full release date isn't announced yet. We're hoping sometime end of the year and maybe early
Yep.
next year. Nothing is pinned down yet. You can wishlist us on Steam. We have a Steam page up. Wishlisting is the best thing you can do for us indie devs at this stage. We have a big announcement coming out end of this week, I think.
Wow.
But you can check in all that on the Steam page. Got a new reveal happening alongside ANZ Indie Fest. And then following us on all the social medias helps too. You know, Instagram is probably our most active location, and we're trying to grow that every day. So we would appreciate any follows we can get through there.
Beautiful. Well, thanks again for your time, boys. And thanks everyone for tuning into the show. You can subscribe, you can leave a comment, you can do anything. Anything helps. So please do that. But yeah, good luck, guys. All the best. And yeah, wish you well.
Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Cheers.